On the cliffs, caves and stone walls of the Serra da Capivara, in Brazil's hot and dry northeastern countryside, there are signs of an ancient human presence that challenges established theories on how mankind reached the Americas. These drawings depicting prehistoric times, the region's fauna, and scenes of daily life among its ancient inhabitants, like this one usually described as the Kiss. The artifacts found here are among the oldest in the Americas. This stone tool, dated to be 30,000 years old, kept in the Parks Museum, is an example. Research began here in the late 1970s when archaeologist Nied Guidon, now 86 years old and still working in the region, first heard from locals about the paintings. Her discoveries supported the theory, then much discredited, that mankind arrived in South America before reaching North America, and thousands of years earlier than previously thought.
The excavations here have shown that mankind arrived here about 30,000 years ago, and they stayed because at the time this was a very favorable region with plenty of water. But when we published the first results of our research with the dates of the artifacts from the Hold Stone site, some American scientists said it was impossible because man had the Americas 17,000 ago. Some American scientists said it was impossible because man had the Americas 17,000 ago. Some American scientists said it was impossible because man had the Americas 17,000 ago Bering Strait.
Every year, a French government-sponsored team comes to Serra da Capivara for a few months to continue digging. The sites are now covered again for protection, as this year's excavations have been completed. Archaeologists logging the artifacts collected say their latest finds date back even further.
Oldest, for the moment, it's around 70, 65,000 years old. Donc we have all the sequence, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, now 69,000 years old. 70,
and it's
65,000 years old. Donc we have all the sequence, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, now 69,000 years old. 70, 65,000 years old. Donc we have all the sequence, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, now 69,000 years old.
And it's
Could the Mongoloids have replaced the Aborigines?
This is very clear in South America. All populations I have in my data set from the whole South America, okay, from 7,000 to the present, they're absolutely classic Mongoloid. And everything I have with more than 9,000, okay, is absolutely non-Mongoloid. So
That to me is a Negroid face that has all the features that you associate with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face, it doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid.
This is OPB. I'm Jeff Norcross. A series of ancient human artifacts found in a remote corner of northwestern Idaho could help rewrite history books. They're the oldest human artifacts ever found in North America, and they could help change the story of how humans came to be here and dispersed throughout the continent. OPB science writer Erin Ross has been covering this story, and she joins me now. Erin, good morning.
Good morning.
So what did we believe before this discovery?
So do you know about the Bering Land Bridge?
Yeah, from Asia.
Yeah. So it's this idea that during the last ice age, you had all this water trapped on land as ice, and that meant that sea levels were really low, and it exposed this bridge of land connecting Asia to North America. And so for a really long time, the idea was that people crossed this bridge to come here. And once they got here, though, for a long time, North America was still covered with ice. So everyone assumed that no one made it past the ice sheets and left Alaska until a little over 14,000 years ago, when this ice-free corridor opened up in the middle of the continent and people could just follow the grass south. And for a long time, archaeological evidence supported this. So like every single site that we found was kind of clustered around this ice-free corridor. Nothing was over 13,000 years old, and they all had a shared technology.
And then that started to change.
Right. So slowly we started finding these sites that were older and older, like the Paisley Caves in Southeast Oregon are 14,000 years old. And some of the sites had a different technology than the ones that they found in this corridor. The thing is, though, like a lot of these sites were pretty controversial. So people who thought that we had to have come by the ice-free corridor argued that maybe some of these sites weren't dated right, or maybe like rodents had moved around artifacts in the soil when they were burrowing and messed up the dating. Or they'd argue that the ice-free corridor opened up earlier than people ever thought. So that's what makes this site in Idaho so cool, though. That's where it comes in.
Yeah, well, tell me about the site. It's in northwestern Idaho?
Yeah, it's really close to the border with Oregon, and it's along the Salmon River, which is a tributary to the Columbia. And they call the site Cooper's Ferry. Presumably there was a ferry there. And people had been excavating there on and off since the 1960s, but they had no idea how old this site was. And it wasn't until Lauren Davis from Oregon State University and his team started this 10-year excavation, and they started pulling out artifacts that were 13,000 years old and then older and older, and they documented everything, like all the rodent disturbances. They dated everything with 2 methods, so nobody can contest it. And then finally they found things that were 16,500 years old.
16,500. How much older is that than the other artifacts?
This predates the earliest confirmed sites by at least 1,000 years.
Huh.
It's like textbook changing. It means that people came to America sooner than 16,000 years ago. And that also means that there's just no way that people came from Alaska to Cooper's Ferry because there were thousands of miles of ice in the way.
Yeah, no ice-free corridor. So if they didn't use an ice-free corridor to get there, how did they do it?
So there's this hypothesis that people are still investigating, but they call it the Kelp Highway. And the idea is that people could have followed these coastal kelp forests up from Asia and then kind of followed it by boat along the Bering Bridge and then come down kind of hugging the shore and the coastline until you get to North America, because kelp forests are full of life. There's lots to eat there. And they kind of help break wave energy, so it makes the sea a little bit smoother. And eventually they would find their way to Cooper's Ferry.
Getting there by boat instead of by foot.
Exactly, yeah. If you're going south along the coast, the Columbia is the first left you see, and then you just follow the rivers all the way.
You just keep going. It's not just the age of the site that makes it important, though, right?
Right. It's also what they found there. So they found a special type of technology called a Western stemmed point, and it's really old. It's older than any other type of technology that we've seen, like 50,000 years old. But these particular type, they match ones that were found in Japan about 16,500 years ago. So you have these types of like spear points that are being made in a really similar way in opposite sides of the Pacific. And so maybe those people from Japan were the first ones to come over, because that type of technology, that skill, is something that you pass down.
And did they stay there?
They did. So there's not a lot of evidence for it, though.
Yeah.
About 1,000 years after people arrived at Clovis, these massive Missoula floods just swept across the Northwest from melting glacial lakes. And pretty much any archaeological site downstream of Cooper's Ferry would have washed away. And same thing, sea levels rose, so any sites along the coast would be underwater. But we do have artifacts at Cooper's Ferry that span thousands of years. And the Nez Perce, who were also involved in this excavation, they have tribal knowledge that says that an ancient settlement was present at the site. So people might have been there for a really long time.
Oh, so fascinating. Erin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's OPB science reporter Erin Ross. And you can see her article about all this with pictures of the excavation at opb.org.